The boardroom door swung open, and every head turned. Kelton Reese froze mid-sentence, his confident pitch dying in his throat like a match dropped in water. The woman walking in wore a charcoal suit that cost more than his car, her heels clicking against marble with the precision of a countdown timer. He knew that face. He'd spit on it 3 days ago. His wife. No, his former wife. The one he'd thrown divorce papers at like trash. The one he'd shoved into a wall so hard she'd left a dent. The woman he'd called worthless, pathetic, a burden he couldn't wait to shake off. And now she stood at the head of the table, holding a leather portfolio with his company's logo stamped in gold. "Good morning, gentlemen," Bryony said, her voice smooth as silk over steel. "I'm your new majority shareholder. Effective immediately." Kelton's knees buckled. "But let me take you back to where this all started. Because what you're about to hear, it'll make you question everything you think you know about power, marriage, and revenge. Before we dive in, hit that like button, drop a comment telling me if you've ever seen karma this sweet, and subscribe because trust me, you won't want to miss how this ends." Now let's rewind. 3 months earlier, Bryony Cade was invisible. At least, that's what Kelton told anyone who'd listen. "My wife. She's fine, I guess. Stays home. Cleans. Cooks sometimes, when she remembers. Honestly, I don't know what she does all day." He'd say this at work, at bars, at the gym. Always with that dismissive wave, like she was a stain he couldn't quite scrub out. They lived in Atherton, California, the kind of neighborhood where hedge funds went to retire and houses had names instead of numbers. Their home, a sprawling modernist box of glass and concrete, belonged to Kelton. Or so he thought. Bryony had stopped correcting him years ago. She'd learned early in their marriage that arguing with Kelton was like arguing with a brick wall, except the wall occasionally threw things. "Did you seriously burn the chicken again?" He stood in the kitchen doorway, tie loosened, face already flushed with the 3 whiskeys he'd downed before leaving the office. "I work all day, Bryony. And I come home to burnt chicken." She didn't look up from the sink. "I'm sorry. I'll order something." "Order something. But with my money." He laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "You know what guys at work say? They ask me why I keep a wife who doesn't work, doesn't earn, doesn't do anything. And you know what? I'm starting to wonder the same thing." Bryony's hands stilled in the soapy water. "I'll make something else," she said quietly. "Don't bother." He grabbed his keys. "I'm going to Vanessa's. At least she knows how to treat a man." The door slammed. Bryony stood there for a long moment, water dripping from her fingertips. Then she dried her hands, walked to the study, and opened her laptop. The screen glowed with spreadsheets, legal documents, acquisition reports. She scrolled through them with the focus of a surgeon, her face empty of emotion. This wasn't new. She'd been doing this for months. Planning. Waiting. Building something Kelton would never see coming. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Kelton stormed through the door at midnight, drunk and loud. Bryony was already in bed, but sleep was impossible when he was like this. "Get up," he barked, flipping on the lights. "We need to talk." She sat up slowly, heart already racing. "About what?" "About us." He swayed slightly, pointing at her like she was on trial. "I'm done, Bryony. Done pretending this works. You're dead weight. You know that. Kelton, you're drunk. Don't tell me what I am." His voice cracked like a whip. I've been carrying you for 5 years, paying for everything while you sit around doing nothing. And you know what? I met someone who actually appreciates me. Someone successful. Someone who isn't me, Bryony finished, her voice flat. Exactly. He fumbled with his briefcase, pulling out a manila envelope. Sign these. Divorce papers hit the bed like a grenade. Bryony stared at them. You want a divorce? I want my life back. He leaned in close, whiskey breath hot on her face. You've been a mistake from day one. A charity case I was stupid enough to marry. Well, congratulations, you finally did something useful. You're freeing me. Something inside Bryony cracked. Not broke, she'd been broken before. This was different. This was clarity. And if I don't sign? Kelton's face twisted. Then I'll make your life so miserable you'll beg me to let you go. I'll cut you off. Freeze the accounts. You'll have nothing. You are nothing. Okay, she said. He blinked. What? I'll sign. She reached for the pen on the nightstand. But I have one condition. You don't get conditions. I want the house. Kelton laughed so hard he had to grab the doorframe. The house. This house. The one I paid for. You're delusional. It's in my name, Bryony said calmly. Check the deed. His laughter died. What are you talking about? Your mother gave it to me. 4 years ago before she passed. You were too busy with work to notice the paperwork. Bryony's eyes met his, steady and cold. It's mine, Kelton. Legally. So if you want this divorce, you leave. Not me. The slap came before she could blink. Her head snapped sideways, ears ringing, cheek exploding with heat. She tasted copper. You ungrateful. Kelton grabbed her arm, yanking her off the bed. I should have thrown you out years ago. You think you're smart. You think you have power here. He shoved her. She stumbled backward, hitting the dresser hard enough to knock the lamp over. Shattered. Bryony didn't scream. Didn't cry. She just stood there, blood on her lip, watching him. Sign the papers, Kelton hissed. Keep the damn house. I don't care. But you get nothing else. No alimony. No split. Nothing. Because you are nothing. He threw the pen at her feet and left. Bryony waited until his car roared out of the driveway. Then she picked up her phone. Marlo. Her voice was steady. It's time. Finalize the acquisition. On the other end, her lawyer, a sharp woman named Marlo Price, didn't hesitate. Consider it done. The board meets Friday. You'll be announced Monday. Perfect. Bryony hung up. She walked to the bathroom, cleaned her face, and stared at her reflection. The woman looking back wasn't broken. She was done breaking. Here's what Kelton didn't know. Bryony Cade wasn't just a housewife. She was an heiress. Her grandfather, Thaddeus Cade, had built an empire in commercial real estate before dying when Bryony was 23. He'd left everything to her in a trust. Properties, investments, controlling shares in a dozen companies. But there was a catch. She couldn't touch it until she was 30. When she married Kelton at 25, she'd been waiting. Watching. He'd been charming then, or at least good at pretending. She'd thought maybe, just maybe, he'd be different once they were married. He wasn't. But by then, Bryony had learned something valuable. Abusers thrive in chaos. They crumble in silence. So she went silent. She played the role he wanted. Meek, dependent, invisible. She let him think he was winning. And while he celebrated his imaginary victories, she spent 5 years studying business, building networks, and preparing for the day her trust unlocked. That day came 6 months ago. Suddenly, Bryony had access to $340 million. She started small, buying shares in struggling companies, offering silent partnerships. She worked through proxies, shell corporations, fake names. No one knew Bryony Cade was behind the deals, including Kelton. His company Reese Logistics was dying. He didn't see it, but Bryony did. Bad investments, poor leadership, a board full of yes-men. They needed capital fast. So Bryony gave it to them. Through a firm called Horizon Group, she purchased 51% of the company for pennies on the dollar. The board was thrilled. They'd been saved. They didn't ask questions, didn't check backgrounds. They never thought to look at the signature on the contracts. By the time Kelton threw those divorce papers at her, Bryony didn't just own their house. She owned his company. Friday came. Kelton strutted into work like he owned the place, which, ironically, he very much did not. Big day, Reese. His buddy Dax clapped him on the back. Heard the new investors finally showing up. Maybe we'll actually get those bonuses, huh? Kelton grinned. About time. This place was circling the drain before Horizon stepped in. You meet anyone from Horizon yet? Nah. All emails and lawyers. Probably some old dude who wants his money back double. Kelton shrugged. Who cares? Long as my paycheck clears. He didn't notice the looks, the whispers, the way people stepped aside when he walked past. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. At 1:45, Kelton got a text from his boss. Come to the boardroom. He frowned. He wasn't usually invited to these things. But hey, maybe they were finally recognizing his contributions. He straightened his tie and headed upstairs. The boardroom was packed. Executives, department heads, the entire senior staff. Everyone looked tense. What's going on? Kelton asked. No one answered. Then the door opened. And there she was, Bryony. But not the Bryony he knew. Not the woman who flinched when he raised his voice or apologized for breathing too loud. This Bryony wore power like a second skin. She moved through the room with the confidence of someone who owned it, because she did. Her suit was tailored, her hair pulled back in a sleek bun, her expression unreadable. Behind her walked Marlowe Price, carrying a stack of folders. Good afternoon, Bryony said, taking her place at the head of the table. For those who don't know me, I'm Bryony Cade, majority shareholder of Reese Logistics as of 6 months ago. Effective today, I'm also your new CEO. The room erupted. Questions flew. Confusion rippled through the crowd. But Kelton just stood there, mouth open, brain short-circuiting. Bryony, he croaked. She finally looked at him. No warmth, no anger, just cold clinical assessment. Mr. Reese, she said. Please sit down. What is this? Some kind of joke. Does this look like a joke? Marlowe slid a folder across the table. Acquisition papers. Signed and notarized. Your company has been under new ownership for months. You just didn't know it. Kelton grabbed the folder, flipping through pages he couldn't process. His name was everywhere, listed as employee, not owner, not even partner. This is insane, he breathed. You can't. This is my company. My father started. Your father sold his shares in 2003, Bryony interrupted. The current ownership structure has nothing to do with him. Or you. You. Kelton's face went purple. You're my wife. Ex-wife. As of last week, when you filed for divorce. Bryony smiled thinly. Remember. You were very insistent. He lunged forward, but two security guards materialized from nowhere, blocking him. Sit down. Bryony's voice dropped 10 degrees. Or leave. Your choice. Kelton sat. His hands shook. The room watched in stunned silence as Bryony pulled out another document. I've reviewed this company's operations extensively, she said. And I've identified several areas of concern. Specifically, mismanagement in the logistics division. Repeated failures to meet deadlines. Loss of 3 major clients in 18 months. She looked directly at Kelton. All under your supervision. That's not. There were circumstances. Circumstances you created. Bryony's tone was surgical. You prioritized personal ventures over company business. You misallocated resources. And according to multiple HR complaints, you created a hostile work environment. Dax shifted uncomfortably. Others avoided Kelton's gaze. So here's what's going to happen, Bryony continued. Effective immediately, you're demoted. You'll be reassigned to the warehouse. Entry level. Minimum wage. Kelton shot to his feet. You can't do that. I can. Security will escort you to your new station. Bryony, please. His voice cracked. Don't do this. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry for everything. The things I said, the way you hit me. Bryony's eyes were ice. The way you called me worthless. Useless. A burden. The room went silent. You had 5 years to be sorry, Kelton. You chose cruelty instead. Bryony stood. Now you'll learn what it feels like to have nothing. To be nothing. To be completely at someone else's mercy. She nodded to security. They grabbed his arms. Wait. Bryony, wait. Kelton struggled, panic flooding his face. I can change. I swear I'll. Goodbye, Kelton. They dragged him out. His shouts echoed down the hallway until a door slammed, cutting them off. Bryony turned back to the board. Now, she said calmly, let's discuss Q4 projections. Remember Kelton Reese. The man who thought his wife was worthless. The one who hit her, humiliated her, told her she was nothing. He just got demoted to warehouse work by the woman he threw divorce papers at. But here's the thing about revenge. It's never just one move. It's a chess game. And Bryony, she's been playing 10 steps ahead this whole time. Hey, buckle up. Because what comes next will blow your mind. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me. Have you ever seen someone underestimate the wrong person? Let's go. The first week was hell for Kelton. Not because warehouse work was beneath him, though he definitely thought it was, but because everyone knew. The story spread through Reese Logistics like wildfire. By Monday afternoon, every employee from intern to executive had heard some version of the truth. Kelton Reese, the arrogant manager who'd bragged about his power and his money, had been owned by his useless wife the entire time. The joke started immediately. Hey Reese, need help lifting that box? Or should we call your boss? Someone taped a fake crown to his locker with the words, King of Nothing, scrawled underneath. In the break room, workers whispered just loud enough for him to hear. I heard she bought the whole company just to fire him. No way. She owned it for months. He had no idea. Didn't he used to hit her? That's what I heard. Karma's real, man. Kelton kept his head down, jaw clenched so tight his teeth ached. He wanted to scream, to punch something, to make them all understand that this was wrong, that Bryony had no right. But every time he opened his mouth, he remembered the security guards, the legal documents, the fact that Bryony held every card now. So he lifted boxes, scanned barcodes, took orders from 22-year-old shift supervisors who couldn't hide their smirks. And he seethed. Meanwhile, Bryony was everywhere. She overhauled the company with the precision of a surgeon removing tumors. Departments were restructured. Deadweight was cut. New leadership was brought in, people who actually knew what they were doing. Profits started climbing within weeks. The business press noticed. Mystery CEO saves dying logistics firm, read one headline. Bryony Cade, the woman who built an empire in silence, said another. She gave one interview, just one, to a reporter named Talia Voss from Forbes. Ms. Cade, you've been called a ghost investor, someone who operates entirely behind the scenes. Why reveal yourself now? Bryony smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. Because silence has its place. But so does visibility. I spent years being invisible. I'm done with that. Your ex-husband worked at Reese Logistics. Some say your acquisition was personal. Is that true? Business is always personal, Bryony replied smoothly. But my decisions are based on one thing, results. Reese Logistics was failing under poor management. Fixed it. That's not revenge. That's good business. And your ex-husband's current position in the warehouse? He's exactly where his performance record suggests he should be. The interview went viral. People loved it. The story was too perfect. Powerful woman takes down abusive husband using the one thing he thought made him untouchable. His job. Bryony's Instagram, which she'd never used before, suddenly had 2 million followers. Women commented by the thousands. You're my hero. This is what justice looks like. I wish I had your courage. Bryony read every single one. And for the first time in years, something warm flickered in her chest. Not happiness, not quite, but something close. 3 weeks in, Kelton snapped. He'd been loading trucks in the heat for 9 hours straight. His back screamed. His hands were raw. Every muscle hurt. And then he saw her. Bryony stepped out of a black town car, flanked by assistants. She wore a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than he'd make in 6 months. Her hair caught the sunlight. She looked untouchable. Something inside Kelton broke. He dropped the box he was holding. It hit the concrete with a crash and stormed toward her. Bryony! She stopped, turned. Her expression didn't change. Mr. Reese. Is there a problem? Mr. Reese. Like they were strangers. You can't do this, he hissed, aware of the crowd forming. You can't just destroy my life because we had problems. Problems. Bryony repeated the word like it tasted bad. Is that what you call 5 years of emotional abuse? Physical violence? Treating me like garbage? People were recording now. Phones up, cameras rolling. Kelton felt trapped. Suppose. I made mistakes, he said, voice cracking. I know that. But this is cruel, Bryony. You're being cruel. For a moment, just one, something flickered across her face. something almost like pain. Then it was gone. You're right, she said quietly. I am being cruel, because cruelty is the only language you understand. I tried kindness. I tried patience. I tried enduring. And you know what you did? You hit me. You called me worthless. You threw divorce papers at me like I was trash. Her voice never rose, but every word hit like a hammer. So yes, Kelton, I'm being cruel, and I'm going to keep being cruel until you understand what you put me through. Until you feel even a fraction of the humiliation I lived with every single day. She stepped closer. You wanted to know what I did all day while you were at work. Plan this. Every meeting you had, every promotion you celebrated, every time you bragged about your company, I was building the trap. And you walked right into it. Kelton's legs felt weak. Why? He whispered. Because you taught me something important, Bryony said. You taught me that mercy is wasted on people like you. That sometimes, the only way to survive is to become the very thing that hurts you. She turned to her assistant. Marlowe, please remind Mr. Reese that any further harassment will result in immediate termination and legal action. Of course. Bryony walked away. Kelton stood there, surrounded by phones and stares, and realized something terrifying. She meant every word. This wasn't just revenge. This was justice. And she wasn't going to stop. That night, Kelton showed up at Vanessa's apartment. Vanessa Cade, the woman he'd been seeing on the side. The one he'd called successful and appreciative. The one he'd promised to marry once he was free. She opened the door in yoga pants and a tank top, wine glass in hand. Kelton, what are you doing here? I thought we agreed. I need to talk. He pushed past her into the apartment. Everything's falling apart, Ness. Bryony, my wife, she. Ex-wife, Vanessa corrected. Didn't you finalize that? That's not the point. She owns my company. She demoted me. I'm working in a warehouse like some normal person. Vanessa's tone was ice. Kelton froze. Something in her voice was wrong. What? Vanessa set down her wine glass. You really didn't figure it out, did you? Figure what out? Who do you think told Bryony about your company's financial troubles? Vanessa smiled. It wasn't friendly. Who do you think gave her the inside information she needed to make her move? The room tilted. You. Me. Vanessa's smile widened. See, here's the thing, Kelton. I don't actually like you. I never did. You're arrogant, abusive, and honestly, kind of pathetic. Then why? Because Bryony hired me. Vanessa laughed at his expression. 6 months ago. She needed someone on the inside. Someone who could get close to you, feed her information, keep her updated on your every move. And you made it so easy. You couldn't wait to trash your wife to me. Couldn't stop bragging about how you controlled everything. Kelton's mind spun. You're lying. Am I? Vanessa pulled out her phone, scrolling through messages. Here. Email from Bryony, dated 8 months ago. Need someone who can gain his trust. Willing to pay generously. And here's my response. Happy to help. Men like him are easy. She showed him the screen. Kelton read the words, but they didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. You slept with me. Technically, I didn't. You thought we slept together. I'm a very good actress. Vanessa shrugged. And you were very drunk most of the time. Easy to fake. Kelton's hand shook. I loved you. No, you didn't. You loved the idea of me. The fantasy. Someone who worshipped you and didn't ask questions. Vanessa's expression hardened. But here's the truth, Kelton. Women like Bryony. Women you underestimate and abuse and throw away. They're the dangerous ones. Because they have nothing left to lose. And when you have nothing to lose, you can do anything. She opened the door. Now get out. And don't come back. Your subscription to my fake affection has expired. Kelton stumbled into the hallway, mind reeling. Everything had been a setup. Bryony hadn't just beaten him. She'd destroyed him. The divorce was finalized on a Thursday. Bryony signed the papers in her office. The big corner office on the 20th floor with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown San Jose. Marlo brought champagne. To freedom, the lawyer said, raising her glass. To surviving, Bryony corrected. They drank. Afterward, Bryony stood at the window, watching the city lights flicker on as dusk settled. She thought about the woman she'd been 3 months ago. Trapped in a marriage that was slowly killing her. That woman felt like a stranger now. You okay? Marlo asked. I don't know, Bryony admitted. I won. I got everything I wanted. Justice, power, freedom. But I don't feel happy. That's normal, Marlo said gently. Revenge doesn't heal wounds. Just closes them. You still have to do the work of getting better. Bryony nodded. She'd started therapy. Twice a week, she sat in a sunny office and talked about things she'd buried for years. It was hard, painful. Some days she left feeling worse than when she arrived. But she kept going. Because healing she was learning wasn't pretty. It wasn't a victory lap or a triumphant speech. It was slow, unglamorous work that nobody saw. But it mattered. What about Kelton? Marlo asked. Bryony had kept tabs. Course she had. Kelton lasted 2 months in the warehouse before quitting. He couldn't handle the humiliation, the stares, the constant reminders of what he'd lost. He'd moved back in with his brother in Fresno. Got a job at a call center. His social media went dark. Word was he'd started drinking more. Bryony felt nothing. No satisfaction. No pity. Just a kind of hollow acknowledgement that he existed somewhere, dealing with consequences he'd earned. I don't care about Kelton anymore, she said. He's not my problem. Good. A knock at the door interrupted them. Come in, Bryony called. A young woman entered, early 20s, nervous energy, carrying a portfolio. Ms. Cade. I'm Rowan Finch. You asked to see me. Right. You're the designer from the logistics app team. Bryony gestured to a chair. Sit. I saw your mock-ups. They're brilliant. Rowan's face lit up. Really? I wasn't sure if they were too. They're perfect. I want you to lead the redesign. Full creative control. Report directly to me. Thank you. Thank you so much. Watching the girl's excitement, Bryony felt something shift. This was why she'd fought. Not just for revenge, but for this, the ability to lift people up, to create opportunities, to build something that mattered. After Rowan left, Marlo grinned. You're good at this. The CEO thing. I'm learning, Bryony said. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I'm sorry. She stared at it. Kelton's number was blocked, but he'd probably gotten a new one. Bryony's thumb hovered over the reply button. Then she deleted the message. Some apologies came too late. Bryony stood on stage at a women's business conference in Los Angeles, microphone in hand, looking out at 500 faces. "People ask me if I regret what I did," she said. "If I think I went too far. And honestly, I don't know. Revenge is complicated. It feels good in the moment, like justice, but it doesn't fix what's broken inside you." I pause. "What I do know is this. I refuse to stay silent. I refuse to accept abuse as my fate. And when I finally had power, I used it, not to destroy but to take back what was always mine. My dignity, my voice, my life." Applause rippled through the crowd. If you're in a situation where someone makes you feel small, worthless, invisible, please hear me. You're not. You're none of those things. You're just in the wrong room with the wrong people. And one day when you're ready, you'll walk out of that room. And you'll build something they can't touch. More applause. Louder now. Afterward, women lined up to talk to her. Some cried. Some shared their own stories. One handed her a note that just said, "Thank you for showing me it's possible." Bryony folded the note carefully and put it in her pocket. That night, back in her hotel room, she opened her laptop. New messages, business proposals, interview requests, and one email that made her stop. Subject: Opportunity. Sender: Talia Brennan, VP of Operations, Kelmore Industries. "Miss Cade, we've been following your work. We have a struggling division that needs exactly the kind of turnaround you specialized in. Would you be interested in consulting? Name your price." Bryony leaned back, smiling. A year ago, she'd been invisible, useless, trapped. Now she was the woman companies called when they needed saving. She typed a reply, "Let's talk," and hit send. Kelton saw the Forbes article by accident. He was at a coffee shop in Fresno, killing time before his shift, scrolling through his phone. And there it was. Bryony Cade named one of the top 30 CEOs under 40. Her photo stared back at him. Confident, powerful, untouchable. The article detailed her success, the companies she'd saved, the empire she was building. There was one line near the end that made his chest tighten. When asked about her ex-husband, Cade simply smiled and said, "Who?" Kelton set down his phone. His hands were shaking. Not with anger. Not anymore. With the crushing, suffocating weight of understanding. She'd won. Completely. Utterly. Permanently. And he'd lost everything. Not because she was cruel, but because he'd been. He thought about the man he used to be. Arrogance. The entitlement. The certainty that he was untouchable. That man was gone. What was left was just Kelton. Alone. Broke. Irrelevant. He paid for his coffee and walked out into the harsh California sun. Somewhere, in a boardroom or a stage or a corner office, Bryony was thriving. And he was finally nothing. Just like he'd always told her she was. Funny how that worked. So here's the question I want you to think about. Was Bryony right? Did she cross a line? Or was this exactly the kind of justice abusers deserve? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story taught you anything, let it be this. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Never assume silence means weakness. Because sometimes the people you overlook, they're the ones planning your downfall. Smash that like button if you enjoyed this story. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe because we've got more stories like this coming your way. Remember, karma isn't just real. Sometimes she wears heels and owns the company. See you in the next one.